Hello Glasgow, I'm Jimmy from the news team. We're about to interview our recently hired principal, Mr. Powell. He's been the principal at Maury Elementary School for the last 4 years, and before that he was an assistant principal in Loudoun County. He is also a former middle school and elementary school teacher. Good morning, Mr. Powell. I'm Jimmy. How are you doing today?
Thank you for asking, Jimmy. I really appreciate that question. I'm doing well. Things are going well for me right now, so I appreciate you asking me that question. Things are going really well.
I'm happy to hear that. The news team has a few questions for you today so that the Glasgow community can get to know you a little better. Why did you decide to come to Glasgow?
Jimmy, that's a good question. Why did I decide to pursue coming to Glasgow Middle School? I'd have to kind of take you back a little bit, back to probably November, I believe it was, and one of my friends, old colleagues, reached out to me and basically told me about Glasgow and told me that there was an opening at the middle school, and this person, knew that I wanted to get back to the middle schools eventually, and decided to say, I think you should apply for the position. I think you would be a good fit. And so I looked into it and reached out to some other friends and colleagues that I have in Fairfax and mentors of mine in other districts, and really just kind of had that conversation with them about it. And the more I did research on the school, the more I did research on what Fairfax was doing at the time, some of my strengths aligned with areas of growth, not only for the district but also the school, and some of the things that the school was already doing I was already familiar with, and so it just seemed like a logical thing to kind of at least throw my name in the hat to see if Fairfax would consider me for this position. And at every level, I think it was just really being able to show up as my full authentic self as far as professionally, personally, who I am and what I bring to the table, and really getting back to the middle school years. Some of my best teaching was done at the middle school level as a 6th grade math teacher, as an 8th grade math teacher, and I also coached boys and girls track, at least where I taught. We had athletics at the middle school level, so wanted to get back to that. I love the middle school age, if you will, and it was just a good fit as far as proximity. It's not that far from, Glasgow's not that far from where my daughter has her in-home daycare, so I literally got off at the same exit for the last 5 or 6 years. I just didn't know that Glasgow was on this side. I always went to the Alexandria City side. So it made sense for my family, it made sense for what my professional aspirations were, and it got me back into the middle school. So that was my response to your question as far as why Glasgow, why middle school.
What is your favorite part about working here at Glasgow so far?
Wow, that's a good question. What's my favorite part about serving here at Glasgow thus far? There's so many things. I think the thing that comes to mind right now is something I did before I even started day one, is the home visits. I really appreciated being out in the community and meeting our families and meeting our parents and meeting our kids outside the 4 walls of the school. I would say in addition to that, the same thing, meeting the staff, getting to know the history of the school, getting into the hallways and the lunchrooms, and to see the kids, and see the staff as well, as far as, especially with the year that we've had, just the relationships for me that matter the most. And so getting to know people as far as who they really are, beyond their title of their positions, and same with students, beyond just their name, like where do they come from, what do they bring to the table, and as far as their story. So that's definitely been a highlight during my time as far as relationships.
What are some of your hobbies?
Hobbies of mine, good question. I have a few. So one is reading. I love to read. That wasn't always the case. For those of you who have already had personal conversations with know that Mr. Powell didn't read and comprehend his first book until he was 20 years old. So school for me was very challenging. So now that I have a thirst for reading and actually have those strategies and skills on how to read, which I didn't get until later in life, I love to read. I read pretty much a book a week, if you will. So that's pretty much something that I do a lot of. In addition to that, hobbies that I have that I don't get to do a lot of, I love to paint, I love to draw, anything artistic expression. I like to write poetry. I like to be creative in that way. The other thing that I do a lot, I wouldn't necessarily call it a hobby, but I guess it is now that I'm getting older, is I love to work out. I love to be physical. So playing sports, I played on a softball team in DC. I try to play basketball when I can. I'm outside playing soccer with my kids when I can. I love to run. I have a bike, so I go riding bikes with my wife. I have a gym at home, so I love to work out and to stay physically fit. So those are the things that kind of come to mind when I think about, hobbies.
Do you have any plans or goals for Glasgow? Where do you hope Glasgow will be in the coming years?
Do I have any goals or plans for Glasgow? I think it's to continue to build up on the foundation that's already here, whether that be instructionally, whether that be with the collaboration within the staff and the families, whether that be within community engagement. I think for me, one of the things that I was asked to do and while I was hired, as far as the equity piece, like what does that look like to be at the forefront of what we do within everything that we do? So making sure that we continue to ensure that staff see themselves in the community, that students see themselves when they walk into the building, not only in the images, but also in the curriculum as well, and making sure that we're addressing those gaps that we know the SOLs don't necessarily address across the board. And making sure that we continuously redefine, what does education look like as we kind of come out of this pandemic, and collaborating with staff and collaborating with families to make sure that we're making those enhancements. I think also it's exposure for our kids, not only college and career, but also as far as just new ways of approaching things so that our kids are getting those options and our students have those options within their electives, that they have those options within after school activities and extracurricular activities as well, so that they have those abilities to step into justice and beyond with the goals and aspirations that they have for their own lives as well.
This last question is not school related, but if you had $1 million, what would you do with it?
If Mr. Powell had $1 million, what would he do with it? Wow. Well, right off the bat, with 10% of it or more, I would probably most likely give to my church. I believe in tithing, so I would tithe 10% of it. I think the majority of it, I would have some type of investment set up for my kids, so that the money is rolling over, if you will. So I would try to invest it in some shape, form, or fashion, so that my kids' were able to benefit from it. I probably wouldn't go out. I'm not one of those people who would go out and buy a house or a car or clothes. If I get $1 million, to me $1 million can be spent like that. So I'm probably going to want to invest it in some shape, form, or fashion, so that my kids get some type of benefit from it. I don't know what that would look like, but I would definitely invest it in some shape, form, or fashion, so the money is working for me, not me spending it in that moment.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Powell. We're looking forward to having you on the news again sometime.
Thank you as well, Jamie. I've appreciated my time spending with you guys and really sharing a little bit more about who I am, and I look forward to the many more times that I'll have to engage with our student population and our community about various issues that are relevant for our kids. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Well, Glasgow, the news team hopes you enjoyed our questions and getting to know Mr. Powell a little better. This is Jimmy saying goodbye.